It was a cold, gray afternoon in the small town of Brookdale. The sky hung heavy with dark clouds, and the air inside Jefferson High School was unusually still. The day had dragged on with math tests, whispered gossip, and the usual restless chatter of teenagers waiting for the final bell. But no one expected that this ordinary Wednesday would end in terror. The final period had just begun. Students shuffled into classrooms, groaning under backpacks and textbooks. Teachers tried to keep order, but a strange tension lingered in the air. In room 204, English class was in session. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Miss Carter, a young teacher barely in her late 20s, wrote notes on the board. She spoke calmly. "All right, class. Today we're going to continue with Edgar Allan Poe. Page 56. Let's talk about fear, madness, and shadows of the mind." Jake, a student in the back, muttered jokingly, "Perfect, because this school gives me nightmares already." The class laughed and Ms. Carter smiled but replied sternly, "Settle down, Jake. You'll appreciate Poe one day. Maybe sooner than you think." Just as the laughter faded, the intercom crackled loudly. The principal's voice came, calm but oddly strained. "Attention, students. This is a lockdown. Repeat, the school is now under lockdown. Please remain in your classrooms. Teachers, follow procedures immediately." The room froze. Chairs creaked as everyone stopped mid-motion. Sarah whispered, "Is this a drill?" Kevin frowned. "They usually tell us when it's a drill." Miss Carter quickly ordered, "All right, everyone, stay calm. Move away from the windows. Get under your desks now." Students scrambled to obey. Miss Carter locked the door, turned off the lights, and crouched low in the corner. Silence swallowed the classroom. Then faintly at first came a sound. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway. Slow, deliberate, dragging footsteps. Mia whispered, That doesn't sound like Officer Daniels." Jake tried to sound brave, but his voice cracked. "Probably just the janitor messing around." Ms. Carter hissed, "Quiet." The footsteps grew louder, stopping outside their door. The handle rattled. Click, click, rattle. Shadows moved under the gap at the bottom of the door. Then came the scratching. Long, sharp claws dragged down the wood. Scratch, scratch. Lily whimpered, "That's not human." The scratching stopped. Silence again. Then a voice outside the door, low, distorted, whispering, "Let me in." The students huddled closer together, eyes wide with terror. Miss Carter covered her mouth, shaking. Suddenly a loud bang shook the door. Bang, bang, bang. The whole wall rattled. Books tumbled off shelves, and students whimpered, holding back screams. Kevin whispered in panic, "It's gonna break through. We need to run." Miss Carter snapped sharply, "No, stay down. Don't move." Then, as suddenly as it started, the banging stopped. Silence. Too much silence. They held their breath, straining to hear. And then a sound came from the intercom again. First it was static. Then faint whispers. Dozens of them, overlapping, as though a crowd was muttering inside the speakers. Finally one clear phrase cut through. "They are already inside." The students looked at each other in horror. Mia whispered, trembling, "What does that mean?" Before anyone could answer, the fluorescent lights flickered violently and then went out, plunging the room into darkness. The only sound was breathing, and then a faint shuffle in the corner of the classroom. Someone gasped. Miss Carter's flashlight clicked on, the beam shaking as it swept across desks and students, until it landed on a tall, shadowy figure standing in the far corner. Its face was featureless, black like smoke, but its eyes burned a faint white glow. The students screamed, and the light flickered out. In the pitch dark, the sound of desks scraping and nails dragging across the floor filled the air. Jake yelled, "Run!" But Miss Carter hissed, "No, stay down." But it was too late. Something rushed across the room with an inhuman growl. The intercom blared static and then laughter. Children's laughter. Twisted, echoing, wrong. Sarah cried softly, "Why is this happening?" Miss Carter tried to keep her voice steady. "Everyone stay together. Don't separate." But then the classroom door creaked open on its own. The lock had never been broken, and yet it swung wide, revealing a pitch-black hallway. Beyond it, faint figures shifted, their shapes barely human. Some crawling on the floor, some hanging from the ceiling like broken marionettes. Kevin whispered, "We have to get out of here." Against her better judgment, Miss Carter agreed. Quietly, stay close. They slipped into the hallway, shoes squeaking faintly. Every shadow seemed alive. The school was unrecognizable. Lockers stood twisted, like they'd melted. Windows showed not the stormy afternoon but endless black void. The sound of footsteps followed them, though none of them moved. Sarah pointed, trembling. It's behind us. They turned and saw nothing. Just empty hall. But when they turned back, half the students were gone. Gone without a sound. Only silence where they had been. No, 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 Miss Carter whispered. Stay together. The remaining students ran down the hallway, breathless, until they reached the gym. They slammed the doors shut, pushing bleachers in front of them. In the center of the gym floor, emergency lights glowed red, casting long shadows. What's happening to us? Lily sobbed. Miss Carter held her close. I don't know, but we'll survive. We have to. Then the scoreboard on the wall flickered on by itself. Numbers scrolled rapidly, then froze. 666. The buzzer blared, deafening, and the gym doors shook violently. Something was trying to get in. The bleachers slid across the floor by themselves, dragged by invisible force. Miss Carter screamed, Run! They bolted through the back exit of the gym into the locker rooms. The air smelled of rot and iron. Showers dripped, though no water line was running. In the reflection of the mirrors, the students saw themselves, not as they were, but as pale corpses with hollow eyes. Sarah collapsed, sobbing. We're already dead. We're already dead. Miss Carter shook her. No, don't say that. The whispers grew louder, surrounding them. Join us, join us, join us. The locker doors banged open and shut violently, echoing like gunfire. The group fled again, this time down the stairwell toward the basement. But when they reached the bottom, the door was chained shut. Behind them, something descended the stairs. Heavy, slow, a grotesque figure, its limbs bent backward, its mouth too wide, stretching into an endless grin. Its voice gurgled, I found you? The students screamed, shoving at the basement door until it burst open. They tumbled inside and slammed it shut. Darkness engulfed them. Miss Carter fumbled with her phone flashlight, but when the beam came on, the basement was filled with rows of desks, and sitting at each desk were exact replicas of her students. Their heads turned in unison. Their eyes glowed faintly. The real students backed up in terror. Jake whispered, This is a nightmare. Please wake me up. The replicas all spoke at once, voices overlapping, distorted. You already woke up. The lights blew out. Screams echoed in the dark. The story continues with the group splitting, some being dragged away by unseen hands, others lured by voices of their parents calling from the shadows. Miss Carter fights to keep the survivors together, but one by one, they vanish. The whispers reveal that the lockdown was never ordered by the principal at all. It was the school itself, alive and feeding. The building shifts, halls stretch endlessly, clocks spin backward. The survivors find themselves looping back to the same classroom they started in, but now it's decayed, filled with bloodstains and broken desks. The intercom finally clicks on one last time, and the voice of the principal speaks, distorted and hollow. Lockdown complete. All students accounted for. The last thing they see is the door swinging shut, trapping them forever as the school consumes them, their screams becoming part of the whispers for the next lockdown.